You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey everyone, just a reminder to tell Joe's mom she looks like she lost weight because I accidentally parked on the grass again.
Hey guys, mics are hot. Quiet on the set.
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and if things felt a little off with your career or at home where the two just aren't meshing, it's hard to stack Benjamins like a boss when you can't find the spark. Today, we're diving into how to reset with clarity and purpose with professor and transformational strategist, Dr. Danielle McGeough. But that's not all. We'll also answer a question from Matt, who's wondering what to do with old plans. Do you leave them where they are or do something different? Of course, halfway through this power hour, I'll swoop in with some incredible money-themed trivia that I know you'll get right. And now, 2 guys who think Labor Day is about avoiding labor, especially when it comes to budgeting. It's Joe and O-G.
Hey there, stackers. You know, budgeting, maybe we spend some time on, but definitely leaving the investments alone, hands off. It's a great weekend to do that. Hey, everybody. Happy Labor Day week. I know that, OG, you are already cruising into Labor Day like a boss. Like your brain already went on vacation maybe right after we recorded on Monday.
I mean, when is my brain not on vacation? I could do this show with half my brain tied behind my back.
Wrong answer. You have clients listening to this show.
It was funny. I got a nice note from stacker Matt. We were talking about work-life balance, and you were joking about that, OG. And he's like, well, OG works for himself, so he's able to, phone it in sometimes. And I wrote, I worked for the man, quote unquote, for a number of years. There were weeks. You can't tell me that that's an entrepreneurial thing when you show up at the office and go, yeah, I'm going to smile and nod.
Everybody has that day. I'm thankful that I've got a great team that they went, cool, we got you, boss, and handled it for the day that I was a little in a funk. It's okay. It happens.
Dr. Danielle McGeough is here today just for that reason. So if you're feeling like you're a high performer normally in whatever it is that you do, that things just aren't working, maybe feeling a little burnout here at the end of summer, this is what she does. She helps people with burnout, feeling demoralized, or just stuck. So how do you create some personal rituals that are going to help you get on track? If you've ever heard
unstuck.
Yeah. Did I say stuck? Get stuck?
No, I was saying, get unstuck.
Oh yeah. I thought maybe like I have in the past, I just missed it. If you've ever felt like you're not stuck enough. And
Speaking of, did you see that there was a YouTube video that made the rounds? It was a judge reading the verdict, and it's like, okay, has the jury reached a verdict? Yes, Your Honor, we have. He goes, okay. So he gets it and he looks at it and he goes, okay. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty as to all 6 counts, blah, 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 blah. And he, and there's kind of a light murmur in the crowd. He goes, and we'll go ahead, bailiff, you can release the defendant. And the prosecutor goes, whoa, wait, what? And he goes, what? Oh, wait, didn't I read not guilty? Sorry, not guilty on all 6 counts.
Imagine the emotion if you're
the
that woman or
roller coaster
man.
emotion of that moment of like, oh my God, I thought I won. Oh no, I didn't win. Oh crap, I'm going to jail. Wait, I can leave? Wait, now I can't leave.
Yeah, what if you're the defendant though? Your emotion.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you're the defendant. You're going, oh, we slayed that. I'm out of here. And then it's guilty on all 6 counts. Oh my gosh, crap. What's good? Wait, what? The prosecutor's like, what do you mean you're going to release him? And he goes, oh wait, sorry. Didn't I read not guilty? Let me do that again, guys. Not guilty.
Well, as you guys know, as much as anybody, I can mix that stuff up in a hurry.
That's on me, coach. That's my bad.
You guys are all wound too tight.
Some of my favorite episodes, the 15 years that we've done this show, have been where we create some of these rituals that help us move on. I love the idea that we got early last year about cowboy fencing off time. I still use that analogy all the time. Or the argument that, people are like penguins. That was a great one when Hal Elrod was on, with his morning rituals. Dr. Danielle McGeough is going to be bringing those today. What a great way to begin rolling into a holiday weekend. So get ready to get unstuck, stackers, with Dr. Danielle McGeough. We've got a couple of sponsors who make sure we can keep on keeping on. You're not going to pay a dime for any of this goodness. So we're going to hear from them. And then coming down to Mom's Basement, Dr. Danielle McGeough. You may not know that when we started Stacking Benjamins, it was a blog. And even then, just the startup cost, I remember thinking, is this the right thing? And what if I write things and nobody comes, right? Well, luckily, that didn't end up happening. But starting something new isn't just hard. It's terrifying. There's so much work. You're not sure whether it's going to work out. You're not sure if anybody's going to read it. And then we change it to a podcast. Is anybody actually going to listen, right? What if nobody wants all the stuff that we have? Well, had I used Shopify, it would have been even easier because with their expertise, their helpful tools, and their easy to use platform, that's something that would have made Stacking Benjamins more effective much, much more quickly. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Names you've heard of like Heinz and Mattel, Shopify, Gymshark, Aviator Nation, Allbirds, also all Shopify. Get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. And did I mention that iconic purple Shop Pay button? It's used by millions of businesses around the world. It's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. It also helps boost conversions, meaning less carts going abandoned and more sales for you. So you're stacking Benjamins much more quickly. Time to turn those what ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/SB. Go to shopify.com/SB. That's shopify.com/SB. Dell PCs with Intel Inside are built for the moments you plan and the ones you don't. They're for those all-night study sessions, the moment you're working from a cafe and realize every outlet's taken, the times you're deep in your flow and can't be interrupted by an auto update. That's why Dell builds tech that adapts to you. Built with long-lasting batteries so you're not scrambling for an outlet, and built-in intelligence that makes updates around your schedule, not in the middle of it. Find technology built for the way you work at Dell.com/Dell PCs. Built for you. And I'm super happy she's coming down the stairs to the basement. Dr. Danielle McGeough's with us. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. How are you?
Well, I'm better now that you're here. I am so much better. Well, and let me tell you why. As you know, Labor Day weekend is this weekend. And a lot of people, this is kind of the traditional end of summer. And playtime's over. And we decide starting next week, I got to be like a rocket ship. I got to be huge. I've been through this before. You've probably been through this before. You get to like mid-October And then there's this disillusionment, right? And actually, for our stackers, Danielle, there's disillusionment, I think, in two different areas. Number one is you're running 100 miles an hour toward a goal, and then you realize the things you've been doing every day don't match the meaning you're looking for. And by the way, for people who are just listening to us, she's nodding her head. Yep. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, which is exactly why I wanted to talk to you. But even on a bigger level, this is what we see all the time when we talk to people about their money, is that we set these big, lofty dreams for way in the future. We reach the future, we get to that point, and then we realize this thing I thought I wanted is not at all what I wanted. And I'm still showing up as me, even though I thought it was going to be unicorns and rainbows. And I thought, this is your life's work talking about this, but also you went through this yourself earlier on in your career. Do you mind telling your story to everybody about your big disillusionment?
Yeah, sure. I think I should preface this by letting you all know that I did not grow up the smart kid. I was the weird kid growing up. All of my report cards describe me as unique. And so when I was 20 and I declared to all of my friends and family that I was getting a PhD, they were sort of like, oh,
really?
Really?
It's so funny you say that. I was an English major in college. I had this high school English teacher who always thought I was bad at English. Literally thought that. And I remember coming back one time as a college freshman. She's like, so what did you major in? And I said, English. And she, same thing, Danielle. She goes, oh, neat. How weird.
Neat. That's always like the best reaction, right? So that's what's so wild is so then I did do all of the things. I got the master's degree. I moved across the country. I got the PhD. I did the slog that is the academic job market, and I got my dream job. And I should have been like, hey, y'all, I just earned tenure. Look at me doing this thing that you thought I couldn't do. I should have felt, elated. And instead, I just felt flat. I felt simultaneously overwhelmed and just empty. And I had no idea what was next. No idea what was next. I had a student give a presentation on decorative planning. And she was talking about how she was dealing with anxiety. She went to her therapist. Her therapist is like, well, you're avoiding doing anything with your calendar or your to-do list. Why don't you doodle and decorate it and make it really delightful and see how that goes? And when she said that, I was like, oh, maybe I should try that. I have no artistic skills, despite my dad being my art teacher growing up. Sorry, Dad. But I was like, stickers, I can do that. I can be artsy fartsy with stickers. And so I started decorating my planner with stickers, making it wildly fun and playful. And I started to notice things changing in my life.
Like what?
Well, one, I think I stopped thinking about time management as time management. My planner became more about personal revelation. What you were just kind of describing, that moment of, oh, maybe my goals should have changed, but I just kept doing it. And all of a sudden I find myself achieving it and I'm not connected anymore. I started realizing that planning could be a way that I actually connect with myself, that I can check in and go, hey, do I still care about this? Is this still a priority? Is the goal I set even happening in everyday life? Because I do think that sometimes what happens is we set these goals, but then it doesn't show up anywhere in our daily practices. So I started seeing this shift of just like connecting with myself, realizing what was giving me energy and what was taking my energy, what I wanted more of. I started connecting with even just like, well, what do I want? Where do my desires lie?
I love this idea of, instead of having this planning be like an end all be all, it's almost like, Danielle, you're a human science experiment. And, it's like playing in the mud when you're a kid. You're like, ooh, let's just get messy and see what the hell happens.
Absolutely. I even played around with the idea of saying no. I was really scared of saying no, that if I said no, that people wouldn't think of me as a team player, or that they'd quit asking me and then opportunities wouldn't come my way. And, all of those things that run through your mind. I started to realize that some of my overcommitment, though, was this cycle of me trying to prove my value to other people. And I thought, well, what if I'm just worthy? And how does that change what I need to say yes to and what I can say no to? And I was like, let's do an experiment. Let's just start saying no to things and seeing what happens. And I would say no, and then I would just wait. And it was wild because often not much happened. Not much happened. It was this wonderful way where I was like, okay, so I have some evidence now that some of the scenarios that were playing out in my head about what would happen if I said no were just scenarios in my head and not the real lived experience.
So before you were hyper vigilant about time management, and now you're hyper vigilant about listening and looking for cues. And all of a sudden, I bet when you started saying no, all of a sudden the time management just appears.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's this wonderful book that's called Subtraction, and it's all about all these ways that we, as humans, really want to solve our problems with addition, when oftentimes there is a solution that involves subtraction that's just as elegant, if not more.
It's so hard for us though, because I feel like when I try to subtract, you worry about, well, and you just said this, you worry about all the doors that'll close, that if I say, yeah, I can't do that anymore. And yet when I subtract, I find that doors in the areas that I leave open bigger, if that's a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But there is that act of trust to recognize that by saying no, I'm actually creating space for what matters rather than giving something up or walking away for something. I like to imagine that it's actually opening up space for the things that matter the most. But you have to know what those things are.
Can I say something as an aside that I thought was really cool about your disillusionment story was the lesson coming out of left field, which is your student. I just don't know many professors, Danielle, that would have learned something from their student that was as transformative as that was. Like if a kid says it, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay. My student said it. That's fine. You've got a lot to learn. I know everything, but often those big lessons in our life come out of the blue like that.
Oh, my students teach me so much. I think that one of my most recent lessons from a student was in May. They were giving presentations, and my student stood up, and her first sentence was, "Burnout and demoralization are not the same thing." And I was like, whoa, can we back that up?
I just hear the brakes going.
Yes, absolutely. Strong, sound. And from there, I actually went and I started looking up journal articles because I'm a nerd like that. And I realized, oh my gosh, they aren't the same thing. There's some overlap, but that burnout is really when we're going 100 miles an hour, doing all of the things, putting in all the hours, and we need to hit the brake, right? We need to pause. But demoralization is actually when we kind of know what we need to do, but the structures and the systems aren't really allowing us to do the work that's the meaningful work. It's when you get stuck and bogged down in all the busy crap work instead of the meaningful stuff. So that was a really important distinction for me because I think that so many people are describing themselves and come to me and say, I'm burnt out. But for some people, it's not that you're burnt out. It's that you're demoralized.
Deeper, much deeper.
Yes. Yes. And you need different solutions for each of those things.
Well, when you say that the systems and the processes that we don't have those in place, so how do we start to reset that?
Yeah. I think that one, if you can name your stuck, if you can name whether you're burnout or you're demoralized, you're going to know, do I need systems of saying no? Do I need systems of rest? Or do I need systems that really help me connect with the things that matter the most? And for me, that has always been through the process of creating some rituals. So for me, I like to think, what is the state that I'm in? And then what's the desired state that I'd like to be in? And I use ritual to move me from one state to the next.
Can we talk about that? You have a ritual you call the RISE ritual method. Can we dive into that?
Yeah. So what I have found is that other overachievers like me, when we are facing a spot where we feel flat, our impulse is to go, well, let's stack some more habits. Like, what are some other good habits that I can stack?
If I get 50 more good habits,
then I'll feel great about life, right? And the problem with that is that habits are designed to eventually become unconscious. So if you feel like you're living on autopilot, creating more things that are designed to work on autopilot are not going to help you. Whereas rituals are actually designed to transition us from one state to another. they're designed to evoke presence and connect us to meaning. And so the RISE ritual method helps you do that in 4 steps. You reflect, you do some intentional planning, you activate your senses, and you embody the story.
Okay, can we go through those? So the first thing we do is we reflect. Am I reflecting on like what I did yesterday that was great and what didn't work? Or am I reflecting bigger than that? Like, what am I reflecting on?
So right now, we're just going to reflect on what you want the ritual to do for you. Where is a space that you need some transition in your day that you're going to create your ritual and go, what is the state that I'm in? And what's the state that I want to move to? So let's say you want to do a morning ritual. That's a really common one.
Sure.
Maybe you wake up and you're all groggy and grumpy and you want to be perky and energetic.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's kind of what you're moving to, the reflection is, can we just name the state that you're in and the state that you want to move to?
Gotcha. Well, and that's spoken like a professor too, because I know from my time taking classes in education, like showing your brain the top of that mountain ahead of time, it helps your subconscious mind then begin working on it throughout the day.
Absolutely. And to just intentionally name, this is how I want to move through my day is so wildly helpful. And then the intentional planning part is just thinking, well, when am I going to do the ritual? Where am I going to do it? And, how am I going to do it? And it doesn't have to be very long. I tell people 15 minutes is a great place to start, but you could have a 5-minute version of your ritual and you could have an hour-long cozy version of your ritual. But, take a little bit of time to intentionally plan and then think if it's possible, do your ritual in a place that evokes that desired state that you named.
So if it's that morning routine and you've got a specific spot in your house or out behind your house or wherever it might be, go to that spot.
Absolutely. So for example, if you want to get in this state where you're energized, doing your ritual in your bed may not be the best answer.
Right. Teaching your brain the wrong thing.
Absolutely. I always joke that I wake up and I have busy brain and I kind of just need to chill out right from the get-go. And so my ritual in the morning is incredibly cozy. But my husband, he wakes up and he is in a fog and he's not there yet, So for me, I might like to have things like, and this is part of the sensory activation, I might like to have things like a cozy blanket. But if my husband had that, if he was he'd be gone. And so part of it is, how do you design the ritual? Always thinking intentionally about the state that you want to move yourself to.
That's funny. There was a ritual that I have tried off and on over the years. I think like a lot of people of meditation. And to your point, like your husband, I couldn't meditate without falling asleep. Like I'd end up with nap time. And my coach kept telling me, she's like, that's not what we're going for.
But it feels so nice.
It does feel nice.
Well, and if you've had that busy brain and you finally turn it off, it is just easy to soak into it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you another follow-up question about going back to your student and what they said. Not only you taking that advice and it being so transformative, and it's funny, you just referenced another student said you and May something that you learned a ton of stuff from, but going back to this idea of playfulness, I feel like when people talk about planning, they talk about their career, they talk about goal setting, playfulness is nowhere to be found because it's all too serious. And yet it seems like every answer, Danielle, that you've given me so far has kind of revolved around this idea of making it more playful.
Absolutely. I think that maybe one of the biggest secrets of productivity that people aren't talking about is enjoyment. That, if we want to do something more, we should just find a way to make it delightful. And for me in that moment, when I was really in the muck of it, when my student talked about decorating her planner, what that opened for me is I've been really resistant to any sort of goal setting because I didn't want to add pressure to my already pressure-filled life. But it kind of like lit up this light bulb where it was like, well, what if my goal is to go around the lazy river 93 times with my kids this summer? What if the goal is one that just invites play into my life. And I knew that I needed that because I'm an intense person and I can be intensely serious and I can be intensely playful. And so I knew that I needed to invite more play into my life. And in doing that, I learned so much about myself, and my posture towards the things that I was very serious about shifted too.
I have to imagine for the better. Like I would think people around you would even see that. And I think we're afraid of play because we think that play is going to make us seem in some way unprofessional. And I haven't found that to be the case. I don't know if you have.
Oh, I mean, I think that that is a huge fear, right? That if we want to be taken seriously, we need to show up seriously. I would encourage people, just like I played with the idea of no experiments, to have a play experiment. Show up to the office and think about, how can I bring an element of play to this meeting that's bound to be contentious, and watch the attitudes and postures and connections in the room shift.
You have talked elsewhere about having anxiety and in the like late hours of the night, getting up and decorating your decorating your planner and looking at it. But I have to think about that planning for a second. How do you go through your planner then and plan out your week? Or if your week's already planned, do you go through your planner then and visualize the meetings, think about where the rituals go? Like, tell me about setting up that planning.
Oh, yeah. One of the first things that I do is I just look at, well, what have I already committed to? I do a hybrid planning system. So I do have a digital planner. I use Google. I pull up my Google Calendar and I look at everything that's on my calendar, and I actually rewrite it back down into my planner. And I'm usually
Oh,
looking at about 1 week at a time.
wait a minute. So tactile, like you literally write it back out into your planner.
Yes. And I need to do that for a couple of reasons. One, I don't know, since having kids, my brain just doesn't hold on to things like it used to.
Mine too. Yeah.
And so there's something about writing it down that just helps solidify it for me. But also in the process of doing that, I do think that I get a sense of what are the rhythms of my day going to feel like. I start doing automatically some of that visualization that you were just mentioning. And then it helps me think about, okay, here's my list of to-dos that I have. Where are they going to fall between these different appointments that I have? And how I'm going to map that onto my day. I kind of keep on one side all of my appointments and then my to-do list on the other side. And I do have a daily practice then of asking myself, okay, here's what's going on this day. Let's review it quick. Well, if there are only 3 things that I could get done today, what would those 3 things be that would leave me feeling satisfied, content, happy at the end of the day?
Is that where I start from when I'm picking the 3 things? Is satisfied and content?
I think that that's a really easy place to start from. What I would ultimately recommend is that once you've set some goals, that all your daily top 3 are actually connected to your goals.
Moving the needle.
And if you've set goals from a space that are really connected to your values, and you've had processes to kind of keep checking in with those goals, setting those daily top 3 alongside the goals is really, really helpful to keep moving that needle. But, sometimes too, I like to set what I call to be goals for my day instead of to do goals. So one of my daily top 3 might be, how do I want to be in that contentious meeting that I have to walk into, rather than something I have to do and check off.
That's funny. I had that situation with a friend of mine this morning. I didn't show up and be the person I wanted to be. And afterwards, I'm like, oh, he has some big things going on in his life. I talk too much. And I got done with the run. I'm like, I should have asked John more about what the hell was going on with his stuff. So I love the idea of walking through and thinking, who do I want to be? Do you use AI now for any of your planning stuff?
I do sometimes, especially if I'm struggling with how to break down a task. I'll put into AI what it is that I'm working through. I have attempted to use a few of the apps that will automatically schedule things for you, like will map out your days for you. And you can prioritize and stuff, but I don't know. It didn't stick for me.
Well, what's funny is that I think you and I are like that way. It doesn't stick for me either. And I've also tried it that way, but the intentionality I get from, and that's why I latched on to you writing out your day, because I think like you do, that is so important. Just the mindfulness of taking 10 minutes to rewrite your day and think about how is this going to work? Like what's going to happen? Spending just a little bit of time on it with a cup of coffee or whatever could be huge. Where if I I want to hand AI the stuff that I don't want to think about, not the stuff I think that I need to think about more. But how do you prompt AI for some of your planning stuff?
So when I'm doing that, usually, like I said, I might be like a big project or it might be a really big goal. And I might say, hey, here's the timeline that I want to do this in. I'm trying to figure out all of the different steps to get this done. Can you help me map that out?
Okay,
And then
like milestones.
yes, I might have it map out milestones, or could you break this down into weeks for me? And then let me know what are all the different resources that I need to be able to do this. I just like held a really big retreat. It was so helpful for me to say, hey, could you plan on the day of what are all of the things that I need to pack in my car and what are all of the things that I need to have ready? And it was so nice for it to just make me that checklist. And so, yeah, there are things like that that I absolutely use it for.
That's 100% fantastic. Because how often have you gotten down the road and went, oh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and especially with kids on the brain too, right?
Oh my goodness. Yes. And I mean, that's actually, I love to use it for meal planning. Hey, this is what I have in my fridge. Here's some of the meals that we're trying to eat healthy. Could you put these things together and like tell me what I need to eat and give me a shopping list for it?
Now, you were talking earlier about going through your values and do my tasks that I'm working on line up with my values. I know a piece of the work that you do, Danielle, is teamwork. And let's say that you and I are on a team and my values and tasks look good and your values and tasks look good, but they don't really align. If I'm working with somebody else on a project, what's the first step to getting that alignment that we're looking for?
Ooh, I think that so often when we have conflict, whether it's actually, it can happen in families too, right? We might have
Sure.
financial goals, but what we think is worth and valuable to spend our money on might be different. And
Mm-hmm.
so, one of the first things to do is to make sure that you're carving out a little bit of space for your team to actually get to state what are our values. What are our individual values? And then what are our we values? So, what are my me values? What are our we values? Then from there, I think that sometimes we might even have a lot more patience with each other if we don't even change anything. But now I understand why you're doing the things that you do because you've expressed what your values are to me. And now at
Mm.
least there's some reasons, there's a why between your behavior for me. Where before I might have just been like, what is he doing?
Yeah, right. Why are you wasting time on this?
Get it together, buddy. And so it's so nice when you just express that. But then what you might do too in those conversations and go, are there ways that there are conflicts between the things that we are valuing? And I see this even in individuals that you might value two different things, like spending time with your family and making money. But those things are in conflict with each other sometimes. And so, how are you going to decide which one actually gets prioritized? And so, sometimes that happens within one person, and sometimes that happens within a team. But I think that we just have to speak out loud what our values are. And then we need to kind of look for those spaces of conflict.
If only there were a podcast that dealt with these issues like on a weekly basis. I sometimes dream, and maybe we call it plan, goal, plan. I mean, call me crazy. Does such a podcast exist?
I think it does. And
Whoa,
that's a great
what?
name.
Wait. I heard a genius came up with that name.
Ooh, what genius came up with that? I would love it for people to listen to a podcast by the name of Plan Go Plan.
Yeah. So tell us what happens every week, because I've been listening to it recently. It is so informative and playful and fun. But tell everybody about the show.
Yeah. So really the show just came from me hosting planning parties with my friends and then wanting to have a place to share and to talk about these things and other people that geeked out about those sorts of things. And so once a week, for sure, you'll have a solo episode from me. I'm just moving into 2 episodes a week this month. And so then I get to talk to other people about all different sorts of goal setting that we might do. So sometimes that's financial goals, and sometimes that's fitness goals, and other times that might be family goals and making memories. So I'd love it if you listened.
Are you enjoying the interviews?
Oh my gosh, it's my favorite. I really, really love getting to meet and talk with people. It's just the jam.
It is. It's so fun. But I love your solo episodes. And I find as a podcaster, it's so hard to do solo episodes, and you're so good at it.
Oh, it was a struggle, especially because teaching is what I'm really used to. And I teach in a very like workshop, playful, getting your body move around kind of way. So it's mostly back and forth between my students and I. And so all of a sudden doing a solo podcast, I was like, ooh, I got to work on my lecturing skills.
In a room by yourself with a microphone. Well, you'd never know because you definitely have a talent for it. It is called Plan, Goal, Plan. Available wherever finer podcasts like Stacking Benjamins are. So hit pause right now and subscribe. Danielle, thank you so much for mentoring our stackers today. I know that as we get into busy season, guys, we're going to get there. You're going to get 6 weeks in and the burnout's going to start hitting. And I think putting some rituals and intentionality in your life can help you keep going all fall long and into next year. So Danielle, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This is a blast.
Hey there, stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and as Americans nationwide hit the road for some Labor Day play, let's talk about play. Because today is the anniversary of the first play ever performed in America. At least that's on record anyway. I mean, it was way back in 1665 when you were like 12, Joe. You'd think that the premier play in the USA, or maybe pre-USA at the time, if you want to split hairs, it would have been great, right? It had to have been great. But this play was actually so controversial that the creators were taken to court because one critic called the act profane. Luckily, and tell me this isn't the American way, the judge let them off because while he agreed it may have been profane, it was actually kind of entertaining. That's the same thing we say about Joe's mom after she's had 2 vodka tonics. Profane, but hilarious. Here's a money question. Some Americans will be hitting Broadway for a play this weekend. What's the highest grossing play ever on this iconic street? Here's a hint. You know this play. May have probably seen the movie, and it's a classic tale about a young cub who's coming of age. Wait, is it about me? I'll be back right after I figure out what Hakuna Matata means. It's such a wonderful phrase.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
You didn't start a business just to keep the lights on. You're here to sell more today than yesterday. You're here to win. Lucky for you, Shopify built the best converting checkout on the planet. Like the just one tapping, ridiculously fast acting, sky-high sales stacking, champion of checkouts. That's the good stuff right there. So if your business is in it to win it, win with Shopify. Start your free trial today at shopify.com/win.
Did you know Fast Growing Trees is America's largest and most trusted online nursery with thousands of trees and plants and over 2 million happy customers? Whether you're planting fruit trees, adding privacy, brightening things up with flowers, or bringing in houseplants, Fast Growing Trees has it all. Even better, they can help you find options that are right for your climate, your space, and lifestyle. Click Order Grow. Every plant arrives healthy with the Alive and Thrive guarantee straight to your door. So if you're ready to get planting, this is the moment. Right now, they have great deals on spring planting essentials, up to half off on select plants. And listeners to our show get 20% off their first purchase when using the code WWO at checkout. That's an additional 20% off. Better plants and better growing at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code WWO at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code WWO. Now's the perfect time to plant. Let's grow together. Use WWO to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Go to growingfasttrees.com for details.
Hey there, Stackers. I'm a Kuna Matata lover and guy who's always up for a good play, Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. Earlier, I asked what the highest grossing play on Broadway is and told you that you know it. Surely you've heard of the company that created it anyways, Disney, and the play based on the movie of the same name was, of course, The Lion King. And now, let's get back to two guys who are leading this safari through your money jungle, Joe and OG.
When you went to Broadway, did you see The Lion King? You saw a Disney play, I think, OG.
We saw Aladdin.
Saw Aladdin. Yeah. I bet that's got to be up there too, Doug.
Everything they do is up there.
Yeah, that's
we saw
true.
Aladdin with the original genie. And then when they came to Dallas, when Aladdin came to Dallas, of course, the traveling show is not the Broadway people,
right?
Generally. But the guy who was the genie in the Broadway Aladdin was from the DFW area. The night we went, he did his role as genie because he was in his hometown, and
that's
he
cool.
had a free Saturday, so he came down to Dallas, did it in Dallas. So we got the original, air quotes, the original genie. One might argue Robin Williams is the original genie, but okay.
Right. But the original Broadway genie I heard was just brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great. I mean, it's so impressive to watch. I just love watching people who are the best in the world at what they do the thing that they're the best at. I was watching an interview with Denzel Washington, and they're like, "Oh, you're a movie star." He goes, "I'm not a movie star. I'm a Broadway actor who happens to do movies."
Right.
So his whole thing, he started on Broadway, and he likes, he'll go back and do Broadway stuff. Watching how they perform or watching how they can carry a tune or something, you're like, "Lee, that's good."
Yeah.
So it's fun.
I saw a clip of him, Denzel Washington, on the Graham Norton show, which is a late night show in England. Probably the second best interviewer that I know. He did Joe, you were supposed to get all like a flutter when I said that.
That is so nice. Thank you very much.
I'm just throwing out the compliments.
I was like, wait, Howard Stern?
I got a blank stare from you.
Mark Maron?
But he mentioned to Denzel, like, you did some Shakespeare in your time, right? And prior to seeing this clip, I actually did not know that Denzel Washington was a Broadway actor. He just starts reeling off like whole chunks of dialogue from Shakespeare, and he hadn't done it in 20 years. But that's how into stage acting Denzel was. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
No, most people don't know that.
Still is. Yeah.
I love watching, as you mentioned, OG, high performers work, and big thanks to Dr. Danielle McGeough for coming today. But this idea that people that are great don't get burnt out is not true. I mean, everybody still goes through.
Look at that segue.
The cycle. Yeah, absolutely.
Then that's the thing. Like, there's times to be on stage, right? There's times to practice, and then there's downtime. And the downtime, in my view, needs to come first. I just challenge everybody as you're looking at your calendar for the rest of the year, and you've got vacation time left, or you're planning your 2026, you're starting to look at the 2026 stuff. Start with your free time and then build your work around your free time. And I get it. Everybody's got different rules on what that free time and vacation looks like. I remember my parents, when they worked at GM, it was like, yeah, we have free time. It's 2 weeks in July and 2 weeks in December. Those are our free times. We don't have other free times because that's when the company mandates it. Okay, I got it. Sometimes you don't have that flexibility. But if you do, start with free time and then build your work around it and see how that sits with you for the next 12 months. And I bet you have a little bit more energy.
And I think it also means that during the weekend, when you're away, be present in the everyday activity, not have your brain half at the office.
If you can, try your best.
There was a video I saw recently with this woman interviewing a guy on his deathbed. And he's like, the thing that I regret was that I didn't spend more time on the weekend thinking about my KPIs, which is, all the things I got to get done. I wish I would have done more of that. Made a great point. Speaking of great points, we have a caller who called in with a great point and a question. This is the segment we call Better Call Saul-Sehy and OG. On today's show, we actually got a great comment from stacker Michael, who decided also to call in with a question. But we did a trivia question, if you remember, Doug, and I got lots of people who chimed in on this one. And this was, remember when we talked about the top beer on college campuses? And the study showed that it was Corona. And we had so many stackers tell us, yeah, I don't think so.
Right. Yeah. We knew that was going to be controversial going in, though, as we were writing it.
We're like, yeah, we don't believe this. And we even said it there, and we asked people. In fact, Stacker John told us that he was taking his son last weekend, driving him back to State College. And he said, while he was in State College, he was going to do some market research with some of the college kids while he was there. So, John, I hope that went well, and I hope you weren't driving after that experience. But anyway, Michael wanted to pitch in and tell us about beers that he drank, and then he also has a question.
Hey guys, it's Michael from New Mexico. I called in a little while ago looking for some guidance on getting a new job, which I actually found one that was a fairly significant raise shortly after I asked that question. But on your latest episode, I believe 1714, you put out a call for people, what people drank when they were in college, if they'd graduated in the past 5 years or so. I graduated back in 2021, and at least when I was in college, the beer of choice in my household was Corona. But there were two kinds of beers people drank. It was either Corona or Modelo. So there's kind of your answer, at least for what we drank. I figured I'd also ask a question while I was at it. So I've gotten a few 401ks since I've graduated college and kind of been trying to find a job that works for me and a field that works for me. One thing I've noticed with all of them is none of them are really good. Some of them have high fees in specific funds that would make up my standard stock bond portfolio. And so I've just kind of been sitting on them while I kind of figure out what I'm going to do with them. I've been still putting money into them, maxing that every year, but it's mostly what do I do with the old 401ks from previous jobs? Do I roll those over into like a self 401k, or is it just keep them there where they are, or roll them into my newest one and just roll that one over every time I leave a job until I find a 401k I'm happy with? I figured you guys might be able to give me some insight.
Thanks, Michael, for the question. And Michael was the guy who drank Coronas in college.
Who knew?
Do you think that has to do with where he went to college? Because, I think if you're down on the southern end of the United States where it gets a little hotter, like some of those light beers, like because I think a Corona or Modelo, the two that he's drinking, I'm thinking warm weather.
Yeah, maybe it has to do with the heat. I don't know. Ultra, Michelob Ultra. Just keep it simple. 4.2 beer.
I still think I didn't have the budget for Corona.
Yeah.
I was looking at quantity, not quality.
Yeah. Natty Ice.
Right. Ice beer. Remember that? Remember when that was a thing?
Why did I get a hangover just from you saying Natty Ice?
Don't you remember the can? Like blue, yes, and it had the little thing on
the
it.
The big ice.
Yeah.
On the
gross.
Yeah.
Bush.
Michael, let's talk about his 401ks. And people, this tends to happen as we have different jobs, OG, over the years. We start to get this trail of 401ks behind us.
Yeah. So two things he talked about that I want to think about here. Look, I get it. If the 401k you're investing in is less than ideal in terms of its fund choices, in terms of its cost structure, be the voice of change in your organization and try to fix that. But don't martyr yourself and say, well, I'm not going to invest in this because it's too expensive and the fund fees are too high. They're ripping me off. Because you're only stealing from yourself if you're not contributing to your 401k, getting tax deferral and a company match and, all that, building that muscle of saving and investing. Even if it's not ideal, make sure it's invested. So, or make sure you're participating in it. As far as the old retirement plans go, I don't like the idea of keeping them in the old places because, believe it or not, people lose track of where those places are. You move, you change your logins, your email address and your password, and just stuff falls through the cracks. And I know when you're young, you go, I'll never forget about my first job at insert company here and the 3,000 that's in my 401k plan. I promise. But you will. It's just, if you move a couple times, all of a sudden the mail gets undeliverable. And now they've got very rigid processes in these states for unclaimed property. So even if you just say, I'm going to not pay attention to it for a long period of time, and I'm going to keep track of it, they could deem it to be unclaimed. So it's just far better to consolidate it all in one place. Really, your two choices here of one place are either with your existing company. So you just kind of keep on moving it into, rolling it into the new one every time you get a new job, or get a third-party custodian like a Fidelity, Schwab, or something like that. And that's your repository for all your old stuff. And I think the vast majority of people choose that option versus putting it in the new plan, mostly because you're just free to invest in whatever you want. So you never run into the scenario that he's talking about here where, I'm not really enthralled with the options here or the cost structure or the flexibility or whatever the case may be. If you put your money in an IRA at Schwab or Fidelity, you can virtually invest it in anything you want. So that's the standard typical go-to advice, is consolidated in one place. And then you've got one place to keep track of all of your old money for the rest of your life. There are some exceptions, obviously, but you want to be on top of that. The other thing I would add is if you're at a company for a short period of time, and short meaning, maybe you only have a couple of months worth of contributions or, a couple of dollars worth of contributions. A lot of company plans have a threshold at which they will force liquidate your money. And sometimes that number is around
just
5,000.
send you a check.
Yeah. And so again, if you don't do anything, if you do the do nothing plan and you worked at this company for a year and you put in your 5% and it's worth $5,000, they may say this number is too small for us to keep track of forever. So we're going to give you 30 days to you do something, or we're mailing you a check. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's like people look at it and go, it's $5,000. I could really use that anyway to pay off my insert thing here. Who cares that I get a little bit of a penalty? It's only $500. Who cares that I pay a little bit of taxes? It's only $1,250. And by the way, I could use the money now, but you're just robbing from yourself in the future. So if you have, this is another good reason for when you leave your company, you wait 30 days to make sure the final paperwork's in, the final contributions are in, and then poof, off you go. Roll that money over to a third-party custodian and get it as part of your asset allocation and move on. So don't take it in cash.
I love the idea too, OG, just behaviorally, that it's so much easier to navigate when you have fewer screens to look at. Just having things in a spot where you can make a few meaningful decisions instead of 50 small decisions, I think just behaviorally is great. When I began talking maybe a year ago about getting closer to the efficient frontier than VTSAX, when you have more than $100,000, that can pay big dividends. And I mentioned that diversifying your money along the efficient frontier takes about 15 minutes. The planning to get to that point actually is a lot longer than 15 minutes, but doing it is maybe 15 minutes. And so spending 15 minutes once or twice a year to rebalance, stay diversified is easy. And some of the pushback I got, OG, was from people that said, but I've got money in like 12 different accounts. It just makes it so much more difficult. I think that's another reason just to have just a few different accounts so that it can be 15 minutes, because I think that if you're keeping 45 different old 401ks, and I'm being a little bit ridiculous there, that it creates unnecessary complexity.
Right. Yeah, it does. Keep it simple.
Easier equals often better. Thanks, Michael, for the question. If you've got a question for us and you want to hear your voice on the Stacky Benjamin Show, Stacky Benjamin, and I know that's exactly what you wake up thinking every morning. You know what I want? I want my voice in the Stacky Benjamin Show. StackyBenjamins.com/voicemail gets you on the microphone. All right. We always end our episodes with a community segment we like to call the back porch. Doug, what's going on in the back porch?
Joe, there's a ton on the back porch today. I just have to move it all to the side so I can get to the cooler to get my beer first. Okay, so here we go. One, there's an email coming out, right? I think everybody needs to watch their email because we got some guide updates coming out in the next couple of days.
We do, yeah. If you're somebody who gets one of our guides, if you don't get our guides, you may not know that these are updated every single month. We send you an email with the new update. And so the tax guide, the college planning guide, and the HR guide are all live. Coming next, by the way, speaking, Michael, of having a better dashboard, your financial dashboard guide is going to be coming probably in the next 30 days, and then a retirement guide, and those will be all 5 of them. But in the tax guide this month, more from the OBBB, the new legislation with a lot of tax changes. Those are going into the tax guide this month. On the college planning guide, brand new, just a month ago, we talked about the FAFSA. When the college planning guide first came out, we do a whole walkthrough of the FAFSA now in this month's update of the guide. So taking it step by step through the FAFSA. And on the HR guide, more details on health insurance, where we go through some examples of if you're in this situation, this might be what you should think about. If you're in this situation, this might be what you should think about. So trying to demystify some of those health insurance discussions. If you're not getting the guides and you'd like to, and you buy it one time, we update it every month, no matter how the tax laws change or the college process changes or your HR changes at work or you change jobs. Just go to stackingbenjamins.com/guides and you'll see the full suite of guides.
Joe, don't forget to tell them also about the workshop coming up September 3rd, 2025.
Next Wednesday, September 3rd. Speaking of health insurance, if you're like, okay, they offer this thing called the HSA. You want HSA basics, like HSA 101. This is not going to be high level HSA stuff. This is going to be the basics of an HSA in human terms. Join me 8:30. What did we say? Extraterrestrial time, ET, or 5:30 Pacific
time.
Yes.
Finally.
And then for people central or in the mountains, you can do your own math, but 8:30 ET and 5:30 Pacific. Come join me for about an hour, and then I'll take questions on the HSA, probably about 45 minutes actually from me on the HSA. And then we'll dive into as many questions as you have so that you get the basics of what a health savings account is and how it works.
I'm sure it's going to be awesome. There's another thing we got to squeeze into this back porch. I said there was a lot. We got to squeeze into this back porch session. There is a groundswell of support happening right now in the basement group for a central/western New York meetup. Derek says, just want to say I'm in full support of the Western New York Finger Lakes meetup, as I know Jesse Kramer is, between Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. I'm sure we can find a good spot. And he goes on and on. A number of people, Joe, you need to know, a groundswell of people, that's a quantity, I think. They have all chimed in to say that they'll drive for it. They're in. Jesse Kramer, the Jesse Kramer of P-Fly fame and our Friday contributor, says, here's the problem, though. The audience wants neighbor Doug to be there. I'm sure everyone loves Doug, blah, 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 blah. But Jesse says, but if he comes, I'm leaving the state. So we have a little bit of a problem. We're at odds.
I think what we will do, though, we'll see if Jesse would be up for having a meetup, and we'll see if we can get details on that. I'm sure Jesse would have fun doing that. We'd have fun doing that. Doug, I don't know if you can be there or not. If we could get you and Jesse in the same room, I don't know, but we'd love to make that. But speaking of that, we have a great meetup group. If you're in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, our friends Chris, Veronica, and Mike put that on every month. It is truly a great group that we've got in the Twin Cities. So if you're in the Twin Cities, look up our Facebook group, or if you don't get the 201 newsletter, you may not know that we have that group and when they meet. Also, we have Stackers Cole and Chris in Seattle are starting a Stacking Benjamin Seattle meetup group. Their first meeting is going to be in October. That's pretty cool. We're also talking to James in Boston, who is starting to get some help for Boston meetup group, and also the northern suburbs of Chicago.
Yeah.
The area between Chicago and Milwaukee.
The northern area of Chicago.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Somewhere between Chicago and Milwaukee is where they'll be.
The entire western coast of Lake Michigan. We're gonna have that meetup group.
Waukegan meetup group.
This is such a layup. I don't know why it's taken so long for these, because just imagine saying to your partner, I'm going to go do some financial planning for us for the future. They don't have to know that you're going to drink beers
right.
while you're and eat a whole bunch of bar food while you're talking about money. Or if they do know, hey, honey, come with me and let's go do some financial planning. It's a win-win. There's literally no losing position here. You get to go to a bar, eat fried food, and talk about money.
If you want a Stacking Benjamins meetup group in your area, just write to me, Joe at stackingbenjamins.com, and I can tell you about how it generally works. We can go over some best case stuff that Chris and Veronica, especially in the Twin Cities, have learned in just over the year that they created our first meetup group. So happy to help people there. But that's cool. If we can get Jesse to just do it one time there in the Finger Lakes area or even Rochester, that'd be awesome.
There's such an easy joke there. Trying to get Jesse to do it. I think he did it his one time. Didn't he just have anyway?
He did. Just over a year old.
Here's the other win I didn't even think of. Everybody talks about how difficult it is to meet people, future partners, how tough dating online is. this could be an amazing singles opportunity because you have a shared common
value.
Holy cow. Yeah. We should have hundreds of these things.
Absolutely. Anyway, write me if you're interested. Joe@stackingbenjamins.com. Not if you're interested. Let's do it. Write me if you're thinking about starting a meetup group, and I can tell you how we're able to help. Joe@stackingbenjamins. All right, that's going to do it for today. Big thanks to all of you for lending us your ears. Thanks to Dr. Danielle McGeough for joining us today. I think it's so helpful. We all go through I don't know about you guys, but 3 or 4 times a year, I just need that kick, just get back out in front of it.
Give me a call, man. I'll kick you.
And thanks to, don't be so excited about it. Hey, can I do
that?
It's
happening.
Yes. Thanks to Michael for calling in and sharing his beer pick of choice in college with us. And thanks to all of you for hanging out with us, whether you're walking the dog or you are commuting, just hanging out, whatever it might be. Thanks a ton for the time. Coming up on Friday, we're going to talk about retirement specifically, and something that is a new idea, which is taking these mini retirements. I think the number of sabbaticals in America that people take from traditional employment, where sabbaticals have never been a thing, has doubled in the last few years. And for that reason, we're going to talk to Jillian Johnsrud on our roundtable with OG and Paula, talking about how maybe this can apply to you too. This weird concept of going to your boss and going, hey, I think I want a month away. We'll see how that works. All right. That's on Friday. But right now, Doug, you've got our top 3 things we got to know. Take it away, man.
You know I do. First, take some advice from Dr. Danielle McGeough. If things don't feel like they're in alignment, the time to stop and fix it? Well, that's right now. Second, that old 401k, roll it into an IRA. There's only a few reasons why you wouldn't want to do that, but for most people, having a single catch-all IRA helps you keep your eye on your money better and makes your asset allocation job easier. But the big lesson? Don't ask Joe's mom about the Lion King. She says that play is total BS because the true heir really is the queen. And she'll remind you that she is the queen of this basement only about 6 times per day. Thanks to Dr. Danielle McGeough for joining us. You'll find her podcast, Plan, Goal, Plan, wherever you're listening to us now. We'll also include links in our show notes at stackingbenjamins.com. This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2025, and is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. Joe gets help from a few of our neighborhood friends. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. Oh yeah, and before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamin Show.